أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. Lesson number 152, Surah Al-Kahf. We'll begin from ayah number 32. In the previous ayat, we learned about Jahannam as well as Jannah, the two ends that are prepared for people in the hereafter. It's either hellfire or it is paradise. And for a person to get to Jannah, what does he need to do? Ahsan amal. He needs to do good deeds, good actions. But what is it that distracts a person from preparing for his akhirah? What distracts him? It's the life of this world, which is the second test that is mentioned in the surah. After the test of deen, it is the test of wealth. That how people get fooled by their wealth, they get distracted by it, and because of it, they disregard the akhirah, they completely deny the akhirah, they don't look forward to it, they don't prepare for it. So the second story that is mentioned in this surah demonstrates to us about the test of wealth. So let's look at the story. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. وَاضْرِبْ لَهُمْ, and present to them, مَثَلًا, an example. Present to the people an example. Why? So that they can take a lesson. So that they can learn something very important. And this example is of who? رَجُلَيْنِ, two men. Dual of رَجُل. جَعَلْنَا, we had made, meaning Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had made, لِأَحَدِهِمَا, for one of them too. For one of these two men, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had made, meaning He had given him, جَنَّتَيْنِ, two gardens, meaning two orchards. So two men, one of them possessed two orchards. And these orchards, these gardens were min a'nabin, of grapevines. And a'nab is a plural of inab. And remember that grapevines were very valuable to the Arabs. Why? Because from grapes, what do you get? Fruit, you get juice, you get wine, you also get vinegar, and you also get dry fruit. And at the same time, the leaves of this plant, even they are very beneficial. And if you look at the plant itself, it is extremely elegant. It's extremely delicate. So this person, he possessed two gardens, and these two gardens were of what? Grapevines. Meaning the most dominant plant in these orchards was of what? Grapevines. وَحَفَفْنَاهُمَا, and we had surrounded them too. حَفَفْنَا, from the root letters, حَفَفَ, حَف. And حَف is to surround something from all four sides. It is basically to border something. So for example, you have a garden, and at the borders, you have a particular plant, you have a particular tree. Many times people will have their front yard or their garden bordered with a particular shrub, a particular plant. So, حَفَفْنَاهُمَا, we had fenced these two gardens with what? بِنَخْلٍ, with date palms. So you can imagine, two gardens full of grapevines. And at the borders, what do you have? Date palms. وَجَعَلْنَا, and we had made, بَيْنَهُمَا, between the two. Meaning between the two gardens was also zar'an, crop. What does zar' refer to? Crop. Fields of crop. Plantation. Cornfields. So we see that these two orchards were mainly of grapevines. Each of the two gardens was surrounded by date palms. And in the middle of the two orchards was what? Fields of crop. So in other words, these gardens were full of fruit. They were full of nutritious plants. They were full of grain. They gave every type of food that is necessary for a person. And this person was taking the maximum advantage of his property. Maximum advantage. Because generally when people have a property, especially a field, they will only grow maybe one or two types of plants. Right? But this person, he had vineyards. At the same time, he had date palms. And at the same time, he also had crop. So he was taking the maximum advantage of his property. And who had given this to him? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. جَعَلْنَا. Because every person, no matter what he has been given that from who? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Because he can try all he wants. He will not be successful in attaining unless and until Allah grants him. Kilta, these two. Both of them. Each of them. Kilta is the feminine of the word. Which word? Any idea? Kila. We learned earlier the word kilahuma. Ahaduhuma aw kilahuma. One of them two or both of them two. So kilta, each of the two, al-jannataini, gardens. Both of the gardens, each of the two gardens. Atat, it gave, meaning it produced, ukulaha, its fruit. The word ukul is used for fruit, for produce, but the word samar is also used for fruit and produce. Isn't it so? So what's the difference? Remember that ukul is primarily used for such fruit, such produce that is edible, that a person eats. Whereas remember, samar is the product of a process. It's any kind of produce. Samar includes leaves, it includes stems. But ukul in particular is that part of the plant which you can eat. So imagine that both of these two gardens, they produced its fruit, the edible part, walam tazlim, and it did not reduce. Tazlim from the root letters, za, lam, mim, zulm. Over here we learn the literal meaning of the word zulm, which is to reduce, to fall short, to not give the haqq, to reduce in the haqq. So walam tazlim, meaning the gardens did not reduce, minhu from it, meaning from the ukul, shay'an, anything at all. So in other words, the orchards, they produced the fruit, the edible fruit to the maximum. It was never such that, the person would water his fields, he would look after the fields, he would look after the plants, and at the end he would get nothing. No. Both of the two gardens, they produce a lot of fruit. وَلَمْ تَظْلِمْ مِنْهُ شَيْئًا. It wasn't that one season the palms would not produce any dates, or one season the vines would not give any grapes. No. وَلَمْ تَظْلِمْ مِنْهُ شَيْئًا. Nothing at all was less. وَفَجَّرْنَا. And on top of that, we had cause to gush forth. فَجَّرَ يُفَجِّرُ تَفْجِير literally is to tear apart. And from this, it is used for exploding, for explosion, for causing water to gush forth. And when this word is used for water, it gives the meaning of water flowing in profusion and water flowing with a lot of force. When does water flow with a lot of force? When it is in abundance, when it is a lot. So وَفَجَّرْنَا, we had cause to gush forth. خِلَالَهُمَا, between the two, meaning between the two gardens, نَهَرًا, a river. Khilal is the space between two things. It is said that the word khilal is a plural of khalal. So between the two gardens was also a river. What does it mean by this? It has been said that what this means is that in the middle of each of the two gardens was a river. So basically you had two rivers. In the middle of what? In the middle of each garden. Because remember that between the orchards was what? Between the orchards was cornfields. It was crop. So through each field, through each orchard was what? A river, a stream that was flowing continuously with a lot of water. So we see that in the gardens, there was everything that was vital for life. Everything. From fruit to grains to fresh flowing water. And because of this reason, because of the fresh water, because of the water that was in abundance, because it was naturally irrigated, this is why the orchards always gave produce. Always. It was always available, and this produce was also of very good quality. وَكَانَ لَهُ ثَمَرٌ. And this person, he had samar. He had samar. Now notice the word samar is being used. Earlier we read the word ukul. Now samar is what? It is the produce, whether it is edible or inedible. It includes everything that grows in a plant. Whether it is the flower, or it is the stem, or it is the leaves, or the fruit, or the seeds, everything. So وَكَانَ لَهُ ثَمَرٌ. And remember that the word thamar is the plural of samra. It's the plural of samra. So thamra is fruit, samar would be fruits. And the word samar has also been read in another recitation as sumur. In another recitation, the word samar has also been read as sumur. And sumur is the plural of the word simar. Sumur is the plural of the word simar. And simar is the plural of the word samar. So you understand? In Arabic language you have the plural and the plural of that plural. It's called jam' and jam'ul jam' and jam'ul jam'ul jam'. So what does that show? Extreme abundance. When something is in excessive quantity. When it is a lot. So وَكَانَ لَهُ ثَمَرٌ, he had a lot of produce. What does it mean by this? That first of all, he had abundant produce. It was a lot. So you can imagine grapes, and you can imagine dates and grains. So he had a lot of produce. And we can also understand this as that he had a lot of extra, surplus produce. More than what 2 gardens, 2 orchards would typically produce. Typically, 2 gardens would produce a particular amount. But this person, because of the fresh water, his gardens produced much more, surplus, extra, excessive. And thirdly, scholars have said that samar also refers to the wealth that he possessed other than these gardens and their produce. Because obviously if a person has such gardens and they give so much, he's going to sell, he's going to have a business, and because of that he's going to hire servants, and because of that he's going to have a lot of property, a lot of wealth, different types of wealth, assets, so on and so forth. His wealth is going to multiply, it's going to increase each year. So وَكَانَ لَهُ ثَمَرٌ, he had abundant produce, or he had surplus produce that season, or because of all of this produce he had excessive amounts of wealth. Various types of wealth. وَكَانَ لَهُ ثَمَرٌ. فَقَالَ, so he said, لِصَاحِبِهِ, to his companion. Now remember, this is the example of who? 2 men. We're talking about the first man over here. So he says to his sahib. Now who is this sahib? Who is this other man? Why is he called his sahib? He has been called his sahib because it's possible that he was his neighbor. It's possible that he was his relative. It's possible that he was his friend. It's possible that he just knew him somehow or the other. Allahu a'lam. But he was his sahib in some way or the other. So he said to his companion, وَهُوَ يُحَاوِرُهُ, while he was conversing with him. يُحَاوِرُ, حَاوَرَ, يُحَاوِرُ, from the root letters ha, wa, ra. And muhawara is conversation. When 2 people are actively involved in conversing with one another, in which they're exchanging their thoughts, they're exchanging speech. One person says one thing and the other says another thing. And thus, a conversation continues. Discussion, debate. So, وَهُوَ يُحَاوِرُهُ. Now the owner of the 2 gardens, he is talking to his sahib. And what does he say? He says to him, أَنَا أَكْثَرُ, I am more, minka, than you, malan, in wealth. I have more wealth than you, وَأَعَزُّ نَفَرًا. And I am also stronger when it comes to numbers. I have more people under me. If somebody says something like that to you, how would you think of him? How arrogant. What does he think of himself? And immediately what happens? He falls down in your sight. You don't have any respect for such a person. What a show-off can a person be that أَنَا أَكْثَرُ مِنْكَ مَالًا, I have more wealth than you, and I have more people working under me as well. أَنَا أَكْثَرُ مِنْكَ مَالًا. He's openly showing off. He's openly boasting. And he's openly putting his friend down. Openly he is insulting his friend. And showing himself to be very exalted. And he says, وَأَعَزُّ. أَعَزُّ from the root letters, عَيْن, زَي, زَي, عِز. What does عِز mean? Might, power. So I am more mighty, I am more strong, I am more honorable. A'azzu nafara. And nafar, as you know, is used for a group of people. Manpower. So I have more people. And these people, it can refer to his family, it can refer to his servants, it can refer to his friends, his connections. Because generally what happens? If a person has more wealth, he ends up having more contacts. He ends up having more friends, more acquaintances. And generally, if a person loses his wealth, with his wealth, what else does he lose? His friends and contacts as well. Because people typically befriend one another because of money, because of wealth. And once that connection is gone, once the wealth is gone, friendship is also gone. And this is one of the weakest connections that can be between people. Weakest, through which connections can be established, which is wealth. So he thinks himself superior, and he considers his companion to be inferior. Why? Because of two reasons. First of all, that he had more wealth, and secondly, that he had a bigger number of family and friends. He had more servants. Now, over here when he says, أَنَا أَكْثَرُ مِنْكَ مَالًا وَأَعَزُّ نَفَرًا, he's not saying this as tahaddus of ni'mah. Remember, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us, فَأَمَّا بِنِعْمَةِ رَبِّكَ فَحَدِّثْ, that talk about, mention the blessings that Allah has given to you. So he's not saying this to mention the blessings that Allah has given him. He is saying this in order to show off. And this is a disease that many people develop when they get a little bit of wealth even. That somehow or the other, they want to show to the other what they own. They want to tell the other person in their conversation what they just bought, where they just went, where they stayed, what they're wearing, how much their clothes cost, how much their phone cost, how much they paid in the hotel that they stayed in. This is something that typically people like to mention. Because generally people think that if they have money, then they are more honorable. They are more respectful. And if someone does not have money, he is not respectful. But what did we learn in the previous ayat? That who is truly honorable in the sight of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? The one who worships Allah. Not necessarily the one who has a lot of zina of this worldly life, a lot of glamour of this worldly life. So we need to be careful as well, that when we're talking to other people, what do we talk about? Do we mention our wealth? Do we mention our possessions? If we do, this is something extremely cheap. This is something that lowers a person's status, that degrades a person in the sight of others. Remember in Surah Yusuf, what did we learn? That when Yusuf a.s. had a dream, his father told him, don't tell your brothers about it. Why? Because otherwise they will become envious of you. So similarly, when you have something that Allah has given you, yes, it's good to mention it, but only in a particular context. Only in a way that is humble. Only in a way that is grateful. Not arrogantly. Because when a person does that, then what does he end up doing? He ends up making other people jealous of him. And at the same time, there is riya, there is showing off, which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not like. There is arrogance, which Allah does not like. And because of this, a person could be deprived of his wealth. A person could be deprived of his blessings. وَدَخَلَ, and he entered, جَنَّتَهُ, his garden. So he entered the garden with his companion, with his friend, to walk in the garden, to take a stroll in the garden, to go about in the garden. And perhaps he was showing his friend, let's see, I have so much money. Look at my grapevines. Look at my date palms. This date palm is of this quality. This grapevine is of this quality. You see the soil, I put this kind of fertilizer, I put this kind of sod, I did this and this. He's showing off to his friend. وَدَخَلَ جَنَّتَهُ وَهُوَ ظَالِمٌ لِنَفْسِهِ. He entered his garden while he was doing zulm on himself. Now what was this zulm that he was doing on himself? Showing off, feeling very arrogant, ungratefulness, ingratitude, kibr, وَهُوَ ظَالِمٌ لِنَفْسِهِ. So what do we see over here? That when a person begins to show off, who is he harming? Himself. And generally what do people think? That if they're showing off, they can harm others. And they're benefiting themselves. But it's quite the opposite. When a person shows off, he is in reality harming himself. وَهُوَ ظَالِمٌ لِنَفْسِهِ. And some have said that zulm over here also refers to his kufr. Because kufr is what? Ingratitude. So he entered the garden in the state of extreme ingratitude. قال, he said, مَا أَظُنُّ, I do not think, أَن تَبِيدَ, that it will perish. Tabida from the root letters, ba, ya, dal, bayd. And bayd is when something ceases to exist. When something dies, when something passes away. It does not exist anymore. So he says, I do not think that this will ever perish. هذه, this, meaning this garden of mine, I don't think that it will ever perish. Abadan, ever. Never ever is it going to cease to exist. We see that this person, he was so amazed by his wealth. He was so impressed by his property that he began to think that it was going to remain eternally. He began to think that it was never going to finish. He was so impressed by their perfection, by their beauty, that he thought that they were going to stay like that forever. And because of this, he forgot that dunya is not eternal. And even he is not eternal. When does this happen? When a person does not have strong iman. When a person becomes too arrogant. So he thinks that either he is permanent or his wealth is permanent. And as a result of this, what does a person do? He rejects the hereafter. We learn in Surah Saba, ayah 35, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَقَالُوا نَحْنُ أَكْثَرُ أَمْوَالًا وَأَوْلَادًا وَمَا نَحْنُ بِمُعَذَّبِينَ. And they say, we are more than the believers in wealth and children, and we are not to be punished. So many times when a person becomes arrogant about his property, about his wealth, what happens? He thinks he will never suffer any decline. He thinks his wealth is never going to finish. It's amazing how, if you give some money to children even, just $100, you will see their attitude changing. They will pretend as if they don't need you, and they can do everything themselves. They begin to show off, and they think that those $100 are enough for everything. They will never come to an end, which is why they make such big plans. So just imagine with $100, if a child can become like this, what would happen to a grown-up man who has so much wealth? He will lose his intellect. He will not use his rationale anymore. He will not use his mind anymore. He gets fooled. He gets deceived by his wealth. That this is so perfect, I don't think it's ever going to end. And he says, وَمَا أَظُنُّ, and I do not think that السَّاعَةَ, the hour, قَائِمَةً, one that is going to be established. I don't think that the hereafter, the day of judgment, is ever going to be established. I don't think the day of judgment is going to come. And because of that, my gardens would be destroyed. وَلَئِن, and surely if, suppose the day of judgment does come. Suppose there is a hereafter. If رُدِدْتُ, I was returned from the root letters, ra, dal, dal. If I was ever to be returned, إِلَى رَبِّي, to my Lord, then what will happen? لَأَجِدَنَّ, surely I will definitely find, waw, jim, dal, خَيْرًا مِنْهَا, better than it. Better than what? Better than this Jannah of mine. مُنْقَلَبًا, a place of return. Why does he say that? Because he thinks, since I have it now, I will also have it later. I have it now because I deserve it. And I will have it later because again I will deserve it. If Allah has given it to me here, He is happy with me. There's something special about me that I have it here. And because I have it here, I will definitely have it in the hereafter as well. وَلَئِن رُدِدْتُ إِلَىٰ رَبِّي لَأَجِدَنَّ خَيْرًا مِنْهَا مُنْقَلَبًا. And munqalaba is from the root letters, qaf, lam, ba. As you know, qallaba yuqallibu is to turn. And munqalab, this is maf'ul, and it gives the meaning of zarf, a place of return. So he said this out of extreme arrogance. If you notice, what does he say? I don't think the day of judgment is going to come. I don't think that this is ever going to cease to exist. Notice the arrogance? I. I think, and I don't think, and I believe, and I suggest. Who says this? The person who is extremely arrogant. I is one letter, but it reflects a lot of arrogance. Who do you think you are that you're saying, I don't think and I think? I mean, who are you? You're only a person. You're only one person. Many times it happens that people are asked about, what they have to say concerning something, and they're only giving their own opinions. I personally think, I personally say. We're not talking about you. We're talking about the subject at hand. So similarly, we see the arrogance that is being reflected in the speech of this person. That he forgets the world, he forgets the system that Allah has set, and he's only talking about himself. So he says over here that I don't think there is ever going to be a hereafter, and if there is, then I will get better than this garden in return. How is it going to be better? That it's going to be eternal, and it's going to be more plentiful, it's going to have many more things, and that's because I deserve it. Now this analogy is incorrect. What analogy? That if I have it now, I will also have it later. This is incorrect. Because it's not necessary that if a person has something today, if a person has something in this dunya, he will also be given in the hereafter. And it's not true that if a person is deprived of something in the dunya, he will also be deprived of blessings in the hereafter. This is not the case. Because dunya does not have any value in the sight of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. What do we learn from the hadith? It's as insignificant as what? A dead sheep or a mosquito's wing. Or it's like a drop of water compared to the entire ocean. This is how insignificant dunya is compared to the akhirah in the sight of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So if a person has in this dunya, it doesn't mean that he will definitely have in the hereafter. What is it that guarantees reward for a person in the hereafter? It's his deeds. It's not his wealth. It's his actions. And what is it that deprives a person of reward in the hereafter? Again, it's his actions. We learn in Surah Saba, ayah 37, وَمَا أَمْوَالُكُمْ وَلَا أَوْلَادُكُمْ بِالَّتِي تُقَرِّبُكُمْ عِنْدَنَا زُلْفَى. And it is not your wealth or your children that bring you nearer to us in position. What is it that brings a person closer to Allah? It's the deeds. Similarly in Surah Fussilat, ayah number 50, we learn that other people also say, وَمَا أَظُنُّ السَّاعَةَ قَائِمَةً وَلَئِن رُجِعْتُ إِلَىٰ رَبِّي إِنَّ لِي عِنْدَهُ لَلْحُسْنَى. That people have this thinking, this assumption, that I don't think that the hereafter will occur, and even if I should be returned to my Lord, indeed for me there will be with Him the best reward. I will get the best reward with Him in the hereafter. Similarly in Surah Maryam, ayah 77, we learn, أَفَرَأَيْتَ الَّذِي كَفَرَ بِآيَاتِنَا وَقَالَ لَأُوتَيَنَّ مَالًا وَوَلَدًا. Then have you seen the one who disbelieves in our verses, and he says, I will surely be given wealth and children in the next life. Why? Because I have them now. So this is incorrect thinking. Never should a person think that if I have it now, I will also have it later. What a person should focus on is ahsan amal. قَالَ لَهُ صَاحِبُهُ. So now, his companion, the one who's listening, he replies. He talks back. He says, وَهُوَ يُحَاوِرُهُ, while he was talking to him. He responds to him that أَكَفَرْتَ, have you disbelieved? Are you denying? بِالَّذِي, with the one who خَلَقَكَ, who created you? What are you doing? Are you disbelieving in the one who has created you? أَكَفَرْتَ, this hamza is of istifham. And you know that istifham is for several reasons. Over here, it is for the purpose of ta'ajjub, amazement. Are you serious? What are you doing? What are you talking about? Hear yourself. Are you denying your Lord? Are you denying the one who created you? What's gone wrong with you? Use your common sense. And it's amazing how sometimes people get so deceived by their wealth, so fooled by their wealth, that they say things, they do things as if they are God, as if no one has any authority over them. It's amazing. So similarly, this companion of his is also amazed by his kufr. أَكَفَرْتَ بِالَّذِي خَلَقَكَ? What's gone wrong with you? And secondly, أَكَفَرْتَ, this hamza can also be of inkar, of denial. That do you disbelieve in your Lord, the one who created you? Meaning don't do so. Because if you deny the hereafter, if you say that the hereafter is not going to come, you are rejecting the hereafter, and with that you're also rejecting who? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Because remember that when a person disbelieves in one part of Iman, then what does he do? He disbelieves in other parts of Iman as well. Then other parts of Iman are not acceptable. Just as if a person denies one messenger, it's like as though he has denied all the messengers. His belief in other messengers is also not acceptable. If a person denies the existence of angels, then his belief in prophets is not acceptable. His belief in the Day of Judgment is not acceptable. If a person disbelieves in the Day of Judgment, then his belief in Allah is not acceptable. Why? Why do you think so? Why is it that if a person denies, rejects one pillar of Iman, even if he believes in everything else, even that is not acceptable? Why? That all the pillars of Iman, they are connected with one another. If you deny the Day of Judgment, but if a person believes in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then his Iman in Allah is also incomplete. Why? Because he is denying the words of Allah. He is denying the promise of Allah. He is denying the justice of Allah. He is denying the right of Allah. So is his Iman in Allah complete? No. If a person says, I believe in the messengers, but I don't believe in the angels, then even that will nullify his Iman. Why? Because how does a messenger receive revelation? Through who? Through the angels. So all of the pillars of Iman, they're connected with one another. If a person denies one, then others are also not acceptable. So over here we see that this person said that I don't think that the Day of Judgment is going to come. But his companion says to him, أَكَفَرْتَ بِالَّذِي خَلَقَكَ مِن تُرَابٍ? He didn't say I don't believe in Allah. He says, وَلَئِن رُجِعْتُ إِلَىٰ رَبِّي. He does believe in Allah. He's denying in the hereafter. But his friend says, أَكَفَرْتَ بِالَّذِي خَلَقَكَ? Are you denying the one who created you? مِن تُرَابٍ, from dust? Why does he say this? The one who created you from dust. From dust. He is reminding him of his origin. He is making him realize his reality. That this is what you have been made from, dust. This is your origin, so do not be arrogant. And also when he mentions, الَّذِي خَلَقَكَ مِن تُرَابٍ, the one who created you from dust, he is proving a point to him. What point? Of resurrection, of akhirah. That the one who can create you from dust, he can recreate you from dust again when you've turned into dust. Like for example, you see a plant growing from out of the soil, and you see that plant go dead, and again what happens? It comes to life. Isn't it so? From the ground, constantly you see, every season you see plants coming forth, plants growing out. So he's proving the resurrection to him as well. أَكَفَرْتَ بِالَّذِي خَلَقَكَ مِن تُرَابٍ. And خَلَقَكَ, what he means is your origin, meaning Adam alayhi salam. ثُمَّ مِن نُطْفَةٍ, then from a nutfa, from a sperm drop. Meaning, the rest of the creation, the rest of the people after Adam alayhi salam and Hawa, they were created from what? They were continued by the nutfa. So ثُمَّ مِن نُطْفَةٍ. That okay, even if you said that no, it was Adam alayhi salam who was created from dust, okay, then you were created from what? Nutfa, a sperm drop. Again, something so insignificant, something so despicable, that you don't even like to mention it, you don't even like to hear about it. ثُمَّ سَوَّاكَ, then he shaped you, then he fashioned you, then he smoothened you into rajulan, into a man. Sawwa yusawwi taswiya, it is to level, to smoothen something, to give the finishing touches, the touch-ups at the end, so that what has been made becomes smooth and plain. And it also gives the meaning of making something equal. So he has straightened you He smoothened your skin. He smoothened your features. And at the same time, He made your body, He made your features equal. That you have 2 hands, you have 2 feet, 2 legs, 2 eyes, 2 ears. ثُمَّ سَوَّاكَ رَجُلًا. We learn in Surah Al-Infitar, ayah number 7, الَّذِي خَلَقَكَ فَسَوَّاكَ فَعَدَلَكَ فِي أَيِّ صُورَةٍ مَا شَاءَ رَكَّبَكَ. The one who created you, proportioned you, and balanced you. In whatever form He willed, has He assembled you. So you are denying the one who has created you, the one who has made you, the one who has fashioned your body. Now this person who is responding to his rich friend, he is a believer. And he is warning and rebuking his friend for his disbelief in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And he is reminding him of how he was brought into existence by who? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And if Allah can bring him into existence, He can also recreate him. He can also resurrect him. In Surah Al-Taghabun, ayah number 7, we learn, زَعَمَ الَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا أَلَّنْ يُبْعَثُوا. The disbelievers have assumed, they have claimed that they will never be resurrected. Allah says, قُلْ بَلَا وَرَبِّي لَتُبْعَثُنَّ ثُمَّ لَتُنَبَّؤُنَّ بِمَا عَمِلْتُمْ وَذَلِكَ عَلَى اللَّهِ يَسِيرٌ. Say, yes, by my Lord, you will surely be resurrected. Then you will surely be informed of what you did. And that for Allah is easy. So you think it's not possible for Allah to recreate you? No, it's very easy for Allah to recreate you, to resurrect you. And if you notice over here, his friend, look at the response that he gives to him. He doesn't say, oh, but even I have this much wealth. My family, they own so much. Isn't it? That typically if a person begins to mention his wealth, the other, he also begins to mention his wealth. Isn't it so? If one is showing off, you tend to show off more. If one is showing his phone, you say, let me take off my latest phone. He's showing his iPhone 3, let me take my iPhone 4 out. This is generally what people do. You think you're rich, I am more than you. You think you're smart, I'm smarter than you. This is how typically people respond. But look at the humility of this person. He says, go ahead, show off, do whatever you want, but remember what you're doing is kufr. Remember what you're doing is disbelief. And many times, another reaction is of people that if they are being belittled in front of other, or if they realize that they have less wealth compared to the other, then they become very meek. They're unable to speak out the truth. Even if the other person is saying statements of kufr, they don't have the guts to say something in response. Isn't it? Especially if a person is more wealthy than you. If they say something wrong, you don't have the guts to correct them. Isn't it so? But look at his friend, he speaks the truth. He is not influenced by him. He is not intimidated by his wealth. He is not intimidated by his showing off. Nothing whatsoever. He speaks the truth. He's not afraid. And he says, lakinna, but I. Lakinna is a combination of lakin and ana. And lakin and ana, when they're coming together, you join them together. You remove the hamza of ana, and you join the 2 noons together. So lakinna, but as for I, what do I say? What do I believe? That huwa Allahu Rabbi, that He is Allah, my Lord. Who? The one who created you, the one who fashioned you. Wala ushriku, and I do not associate partners, bi Rabbi, with my Lord, ahadan, anyone. If you notice, his rich friend was not saying any statement of shirk. Isn't it so? He didn't say anything such as, instead I believe in such and such being, in such and such God. So why does he say over here, وَلَا أُشْرِكُ بِرَبِّي أَحَدًا? What kind of shirk was he doing? Riya is also shirk. And that whatever I have, it's because of me. And you notice the I constantly, right? So he is indicating shirk over here, because with his riya, he was doing minor shirk. And remember that the worst false god that is worshipped on this earth is what? The nafs. The nafs. So this person was like worshipping his nafs, his arrogance, his show-off. All of that was exposing what? That he was literally worshipping himself. So he says to him, وَلَا أُشْرِكُ بِرَبِّي أَحَدًا. Notice, this friend of his, he doesn't get intimidated at all. It's as though he's saying, you can disbelieve if you wish. You can do kufr if you wish. But as for me, I am still going to believe, even if you disbelieve. This is just like how the son of Adam a.s., he responded to his brother, when he threatened him, I'm going to kill you, what did he say? إِنَّمَا يَتَقَبَّلَ اللَّهُ مِنَ الْمُتَّقِينَ لَإِن بَسَطْتَ إِلَيَّ يَدَكَ لِتَقْتُلَنِي مَا أَنَا بِبَاسِطٍ يَدِيَ إِلَيْكَ لِأَقْتُلَكَ. If you try to kill me, I'm not going to try to kill you. Do whatever you wish. I'm not going to do what you're doing. So, we see that this man also, he says, if you want to disbelieve, go ahead, disbelieve. Lakinna, as for me, I don't do kufr of my Lord. I don't do any shirk. I believe in Allah. I believe that He is my Lord. So he does not fall to the pressure that is being put on him. He is not influenced. He is not impressed by this disbeliever. Rather, he is disgusted that what's wrong with you? How can you say something like that? How can you think like that? In Surah Yasin, ayah number 22, we learn, وَمَا لِيَ لَا أَعْبُدُ الَّذِي فَطَرَنِي وَإِلَيْهِ تُرْجَعُونَ. And why should I not worship the one who created me? And to Him, all of you will be returned. So why should I not worship Him? Anybody else? Yes, it's the use of this word I or me, that the first person, the rich one, he was using the word I again and again out of arrogance. And this person, when he says I, he is responding to him, and he's in a way showing that whatever I am, it's because of my Lord. He's the one who created me. So it's the use of the word I. But generally, if a person uses the word I a lot, it shows arrogance. A person should generally try to use such vocabulary even in which arrogance is not reflected. When I is attached to success, it reflects arrogance. But success, when a person shows that it's from Allah, then it is not arrogance. And now he reprimands his friend. He advises him. You see, he's not afraid at all. Not afraid at all. Generally what happens? If we feel that somebody is wearing more gold bangles than us, all of a sudden we become like as if we are nothing. They can say whatever they want and we won't even stop them. We won't even say something good. We don't have the guts. Because to us, wealth is everything. But this person, he's not impressed at all. Not at all.